Joining me on the show is Paul Seegert. Paul with PCS Healthcare Advisors. They do advisory for businesses, small businesses and the like, and large businesses too when it comes to healthcare. Paul, good morning. So here's the thing. Stay home, get tested the whole bit. You can't find a test kit. And you know, we've been told all along, hey, no problem. Just, go out and get one of these things. And, we're going to get more and more on the way. And seemingly there's none available. Why are we at this point now, 2 years into this, and we don't have any at-home testing kits?
Well, it is a good question. When they uploaded the genetic sequence online to share with everybody for COVID-19, and within a week, Germany had a test,
right,
a fast test, and we're somehow still struggling in that area, and it has to do with the approach that the FDA took to the whole situation. They fast-tracked the vaccines with Operation Warp Speed and just focused on eliminating red tape and bureaucratic roadblocks and that kind of thing, and were able to get something done in record time. But with the test, they took their normal approach, which is very slow, and they favored PCR tests, which are more accurate but slower. Don't give you a response in minutes, but it takes days, and they have to go to a lab and this kind of thing. And so here we are. You can, if you're and here's how crazy it is. We actually have U.S. companies manufacturing tests, shipping them to Europe, and a European can go into the drugstore and buy one for $3.50. And we don't have them approved for Americans to buy here.
It's incredible. Do we know why that is?
Yeah, it's really the approvals process. I was looking into one company from California. They invested a bunch of money, millions of dollars, to develop a test, submitted their application to the FDA, and then it took months to get a response back. And when they found out there was for some technical reason, they needed to adjust the application. Then it goes back, it takes months to come back for another adjustment, and then says that you have to go to the back of the line again. A scientist out of Washington State submitted a test for approval, and he submitted it by email, his application. They responded and said they needed a paper application sent in by mail. He sent that in. Then they responded and said he needed to send one on a thumb drive or a disk. So he did all that, and he eventually made it through the process, but it added months to the experience, and all of that was lost time for all of us and our ability to know where is an outbreak happening and some very important things like that.
All because of bureaucracy, all because of government red tape. And this is what we set all these rules in place. You got to follow. It's all about the rules, because that's what bureaucrats do. Rather than just go, hey, we're going to peel the Band-Aid off, first to market. Let's fast track the stuff that, to his credit, President Trump, well, I give him full credit. And that is trying to get rid of this bureaucratic layer that just pollutes the system. And in this case, I mean, quite honestly, causes our commerce to crash and people to die, at least in that case. And here's, big bureaucracy is back alive and well if it's ever ended.
Yeah, and so now we're going at it with a solution that is kind of par for the course crazy. Now you have the administration coming out saying, don't worry, you're going to be able to get 8 free tests a month per person. Now, of course, you have to be able to get them. But assuming they solve that problem of supply, we're going to get 8 free tests a month, and it'll be free because your insurance will pay for it. Free and your insurance will pay for it are not the same thing, not even close to the same thing. So what we're doing is, as usual, we're going to bury the cost in people's insurance premium, and they're going to get another increase next year that exceeds inflation,
right, that
eats up any increase in wages. And yet you can have people going out on stage now or on in front of the media now saying it's going to be free.
Paul Seegert is here at PCS Healthcare Advisors in the insight on where we are when it comes to testing. We're in a state of emergency now. Schools are closed. And I don't think we're quite apexed yet to this latest wave of the Omicron. But, when they say, hey, stay home, we're going to take the testing 10 to 5 days, isolation, but get tested to make sure, you don't have COVID. That's a whole nother layer, because no one can get COVID tests whatsoever. It's interesting. I got a blast yesterday from, I think, Menards, and said, hey, of all places, Menards hardware store, we have COVID COVID tests available, one per customer. I think it's a pack of 12 for $150. I mentioned my wife. I'm like, I don't want to hoard these things. We don't need them at our house, but maybe you need them for your business. And I sent a link to our people here in the building. And literally by the time they went to buy them, everything was gone already. So if they're there, they're gone instantaneously because people are buying it. And it also, let's talk about how. Okay, let's get rid of bureaucracy because it's at odds with commerce. It's at odds with our system, the way things are set up, because now you have two opportunities, right? You'll have people who will hoard. I always love this is we've got to go down on people who are price gouging. It's the price gougers, whether it's batteries after a severe storm or bottled water during a hurricane, or in this case, testing kits or whatever it might be. Well, of course, if things are in short supply and people can get them, they're going to try and resell them at what market price is. If the government doesn't step in and say, hey, we're going to get a whole bunch of these tests and hand them out for free or whatever it is we're going to do, fine, well, do it. But don't put all these bureaucratic roadblocks in place and expect the system to work, because it won't.
No, and what you have is an environment where entrepreneurial companies that could fill the gap we even have, as I mentioned, U.S. companies that are filling the gap for overseas countries, but they're hesitant to make the investment and do it here and go through the process because the ROI it's a scary situation for them. I'm going to invest millions of dollars, go through the process, spend all the time and effort, and maybe not make it through the process.
Right.
So we have to simplify that. That's one huge issue that's hurting us and a flaw really in our system. And then the other is our peer countries. They had public-private partnership to create tests in the same way that we did to get the vaccines to market. Mm-hmm. We partnered with companies as a country that, we helped fund that development. And so we could get them on board and get them to do it quickly and so on. And regardless of your opinion on whether that was right or wrong, it made things happen more quickly. European countries did that with testing. We did not. Everything was very status quo when it came to testing.
It's funny, the Europeans got it right in that regard, and we didn't. There's some twisted irony there, Paul Seegert. One of the other elements, too, of this is the fact that you're going to have people who will hoard or will buy a bulk and try to resell them at profit, which we often see, in price gouging. The other element of this is you will have bad actors out there who will just simply fake it. And we're starting to see that now, right? These pop-up testing sites that say, hey, yeah, it's your insurance card, or it's $100 or whatever it is, and it turns out not even processing the test. We have fake testing sites popping up now.
Yep, our system is unfortunately prone to that kind of thing occurs. Mm-hmm. And it's pre-COVID. It existed with our workers' comp system, with our healthcare system, Medicare fraud. And we are opening ourselves up to that as well.
Guys buying Lamborghinis with the PPP, right? It's like, okay, I got all this money to $20,000 a work or whatever it is, and in money to keep the lights on, and they're out and they're buying luxury yachts and stuff with it. In this case, Now we've got people going, hey, listen, I can build a government and at $100 a clip and not ever process a test. But people are going into these sites, largely in big urban areas, in doing this and realizing, hey, man, this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, somehow we're not able to get them approved, but we're so careful about the approval process that we're not getting tests approved, and we're not at all on the ball when it comes to the payment side, which has been a problem and continues to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know what the end game is here, because right now it seems like we have been stressed like we've never seen before, Paul Seegert, relative to healthcare workers, relative to first responders and the like, simply because Omicron is so virulent. A lot of people are getting it. Now, fortunately, most people aren't getting, those who have the vaccine aren't really getting deadly sick. But again, it's overwhelming the system to the point where it looks like, I don't want to say it's starting to fracture, it's almost starting to crumble in areas.
Yeah, I think our response is we're seeing the weaknesses in the way that we approach it there too. We've got 500,000 workers, 540 something that have left healthcare, and we're on track to lose another 500,000. We're going to be at a shortage of nurses. Over 1 million will be the shortage. I think 1.1 million this year. And so when you have CEOs coming out, like the Mayo Clinic that fired 700 workers, about 1% of their workforce, for not getting vaccinated. And you'll have CEOs of organizations like that come out and say, well, 99% of our people complied. That doesn't include all the people that quit, all the people that retired early, right, all the people that changed careers. We have a serious shortage. We've got 1 in 4 hospitals reports that they have a critical staffing shortage right now. that doesn't line up with 99%. I mean, we have a real problem there. And it's gotten to a point where health systems will allow you to work while COVID positive if you're vaccinated and you followed that rule. But if you're unvaccinated and COVID negative, you're fired. I mean, that really, you don't have to be a healthcare expert or anything to think that might not make sense.
Yeah, there's no common sense, right? I don't want the vaccine. Okay, you're fired. Well, we don't have enough people to work. So now we're going to have people who have been vaccinated who have tested positive working. What's the difference? We're living in pretty crazy times. Yeah, just to say that, I think that's a vast understatement, right? And just seeing this kind of firsthand and going, my God, it's, we're hearing from later on, I hear from firefighters and we don't have enough firefighters in Cincinnati right now. Those are the people that are going to get you to the hospital. Are we going to hit a point where we, I mean, honestly, think about this. Are we going to hit a point, Paul Seegert, where we see this thing go from bad to worse in a sense that now we're going to, literally medics and frontline workers are going to have to make life and death decisions based on trying to resuscitate a patient who's had a cardiac arrest or something like that because they're so overwhelmed, they're so busy. We're triaging people, right? Whether they're going to live or die, all based on lack of staffing.
We are. I mean, that people that are listening probably think that sounds crazy, but that is happening. You have people that are being, where treatment is being delayed or it's not available in their marketplace. Maybe they're in a more rural area and the hospital can't staff for all the services that they usually provide. And so surgeries are being postponed or they're having to go to other places to get them. We're kind of getting a real time example of what it might be like if we all decided to go to a single payer model and have a socialized version of medicine where you have to ration care. We're kind of living that as a result of the way we've handled COVID.
Yeah, I mean, really, we kind of are, right, in deciding winners and losers, who's going to get treatment, who's not going to get treatment in this case, simply because we don't have enough people or beds. I think the other great thing that they missed, that they're screwing up too, is why are we, and you know more about this anyway, I've been harping on this for a couple of weeks now, Paul Seegert, PCS Healthcare Advisors, they're a business healthcare advisory firm, and that is here in Ohio anyway, we've got a couple thousand Guard members who are helping out in the hospitals because they're understaffed. Why aren't we taking the military, at least the National Guard in all states, and putting field hospitals, maybe in a state like Ohio, like 5 or 6 field hospitals out there, or the convention center, Duke Energy Convention Center downtown like we did in the early days, and say, look, if you test positive going into an ER or a parking lot at a hospital, something like that, and you're sick, and it turns out you're COVID positive, we're going to reroute you to a medical facility where only deal with COVID patients. Let the military kind of deal with them and save the ERs for either overflow or people who are either injured in traffic accidents, stroke victims, cardiac, things like that. Why overwhelm our regular ERs with people who are largely unvaccinated? I don't understand that.
Well, yep, I don't either. When we did it, many of those facilities weren't used, and then when we need it, we're not doing it.
Right. We had the Duke Energy Center. We had our convention center here in Cincy staged, ready to go, and they never had one patient in there. And now it sounds like, well, we could be doing that. We're not even talking about doing that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
The whole experience has been head scratching.
And segregating the COVID patients from the rest of the either injured or sick population seems to be kind of common sense. I mean, social distancing, masking, all that stuff, right? And yet we're going to have everyone go to the same ER, whether you have COVID or not. It's like a petri dish where people are already vulnerable.
Yeah, and your nurse is probably COVID positive.
Right. I just, I scratch my head.
Yet, you might get positive going.
Seriously, the lack of leadership here in decision making and the whole process, because they're worried about optics and poll numbers and probably responses on Twitter. Yep. And I think that's what it is, right? We have an entirety of leadership, political or otherwise, that are afraid to make decisions because if it's the wrong decision or there's criticism, there's going to be blowback for that. We've at a point now where no one wants to take a chance or make a decision because they're afraid it's going to be wrong, and it's killing people.
You have scientists, some of the best public health experts in the world, who won't come out and speak against what's being done, even though they don't believe we're handling it in the right way, or they have valuable input to give. They're afraid to come out and speak about what's going on because of what it might do to their career. Mm-hmm. That's not a healthy environment that we've created.
No.
Dr. Harvey Risch, I think, at Yale, one of the top public health experts in the world, was one of the few that I've seen that that did or has come out and spoken against some of this stuff and talk about the noble lying that is what Fauci has labeled some of what he's done to, I guess, explain it, and come out and said some things that are pretty counter to what the way that we're handling this whole pandemic. The fact that we ignore natural immunity, and there's more than 90 studies that say that it's real, and 6 studies that say that if you have natural immunity and you get vaccinated, you're more likely to have an adverse reaction. And all these things that are, if you say them, they'll deplatform you, even though you could get the data right off the CDC's own website.
Right.
And that it's just, we've created an environment of fear. And I think it's even got these healthcare CEOs coming out saying things like, hey, 99% of our workforce got vaccinated. We've got no problem, because they're in a political position, in a very high profile position, and they could literally lose their job. I mean, there was a CEO of a health system, I think it was in South Dakota. He had COVID, recovered, and said, I don't need to wear a mask anymore. Didn't want to do it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm just mentioning the story because he lost his job.
Wow.
And he was the CEO of a health system, but they're in legitimate fear.
Yeah, you can't make a decision because half the country is going to be mad at you politically, or because for whatever reason, and for some reason, everyone's voice is weighted the same now because of social media, because of just the way we are today as a society, and this is literally our downfall. Paul Seegert, PCS Healthcare Advisor, smartest guy in the room. Paul, always appreciate the insight into healthcare stuff. Thanks so much.